Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of The Stone Genius. My name is Ro, you know me, I'm the Stone Genius. I'm often stoned, I'm always a genius. I have two guests with me today, not one, but two. The first one is someone that I have a relationship with, as she is my insurance agent, and she has had to put up with me recently. She's an insurance extraordinaire from Farmers Insurance. Lisa Hoskins is joining us. Also with her is Chris Peoples. He is the Kansas City Metro District Manager. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Well, and this is what led to this conversation. So Lisa has been trying, I reached out to Lisa about life insurance. And we finally decided to push forward, and then we got to a sticking point. And the sticking point was me never responding to anything from Lisa. So it got me to thinking, I need to do this, but let's get them on the program because I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one that do this. So let me back up just a little and have you all talk a little bit about yourselves and what you do. So Lisa, you and I, let me back up one more second. Why I got to Farmers. So the reason that I went to Farmers and I love Farmers so much, and I hope this hasn't changed and I let this out of the bag, is that our dog is covered. So it was the only provider that we've had Dobermans for over 30 years. Never had a bite. Our Dobermans, she's laying here next to me. She says hi every once in a while. Never had a bite issue or anything, but most insurance companies won't carry them. And that's how I originally ended with Farmers, and I have been nothing but pleased. So now I'm going to let you say something, Lisa. Thank you.
No problem. Thanks for having us on. I've been your insurance agent now for a couple of years. I started as an agency owner for Chris a couple years ago, and actually inherited your account, I guess you could call it. And
now, Chris, were you my previous agent?
I wasn't. I basically manage 35 agencies in the KC area, and he was one of the agents in my district.
Okay, because that's what I was going to back up to that. So I originally had an agent with Farmers, and then I get an email one day that says, you have a new agent. And I didn't hear from that old agent for a year, and I guess he couldn't reach out to me for a year or something like that. And he just said, hey, didn't try to solicit. He just goes, hey, I wanted you to know what happened. I went. I offer different lines now if you ever need anything. But that was it. And so that was very nice. But during that interim, before I got to you, Lisa, there was some other name, never interacted with that person, not once. And I don't know. It's not like I had any claims or really had a need to, but I did appreciate when I got to Lisa. Lisa, you reached out. You were like, hey, I'm your new agent if there's anything. And I don't think I ever got that before. So I was just curious to how I arrived at Lisa.
Yeah. This isn't for everyone. This industry isn't for everyone. It is a balance between maintaining a relationship with your current customers and then also growing your business and developing new relationships. So not everybody can do both. I actually come from online advertising sales. I worked in DC for 10 years and then a little bit here in Kansas City when I moved back. And that was my job, was to build a book of business, because the company I worked for, we actually got paid on residual income. So I would build a book of business, but continue to grow it, because through no fault of my own, and maybe sometimes fault through the company, but you would lose, some business.
Right.
And so you always want to just be growing it. And I enjoy the relationships I have with my customers, because you're local, I'm local. We live in Kansas City together. So we have things to share in common.
Chris, I was just going to ask, do you see a lot of agents that want to be agents, and then they get licensed, start learning about it, and then they're like, you know what, because you have to be an outgoing person to start a conversation, which I am, but then you have to be able to talk about certain things and direct the conversation. So do you find people coming to you and thinking, I'm going to be awesome at this, and then they're like, this is not for me?
100%.
Okay.
So I actually, for me, it's been a learning process when I'm bringing people into the business. Before I kind of figured that We could set up the processes, give you the playbook to run this business successfully. I've been in with farmers for 18 years. I've seen how it's done in a lot of places. But the thing I didn't really account for as much is the human aspect of it. Like every person, we are who we are. And so, coming in, people have rose-colored glasses. They think, I can crush it. I can do this. And I've learned for most people, I actually make them be a staff member first, make sure this is a business that they're going to be able to actually enjoy,
Right.
gravitate towards the parts that I think really help you be successful in this business. And honestly, even for your experience, so they're small business owners. Lisa's a small business owner.
Right.
And as Ro, as a small business owner, you can be on an island. And so if you aren't, working to connect yourself with the right people, to keep your mind in the right place, and then especially during COVID, when COVID hit, that affected a lot of people into isolation. And quite candidly, a lot of people never rebound from it. A lot of my businesses didn't rebound from that because they got down into that island. It's a lot easier to find people to connect with who want to pull you down with them. And you got to manage your mindset in those situations. That's partially my job, to help keep the mind in the right place. Lisa's easy. She's a
I wouldn't say that,
positive
but
person. But it does take that, especially in these small businesses, to be able to keep, the train running down that track the right way.
It does. And Chris, are you actively searching for either existing agents and I don't know how that works. Like, I don't know, like non-competes. In fact, I think I read something recently where they're trying to say non-competes are not even legal anymore or something like.
Yeah.
So, but so when I used to be a sales manager, when I was a store manager, I made my sales managers go out and recruit, whether we needed people or not. Because you always needed to go, if I lose someone, whether we needed to get rid of them, we promoted them to customer, more or less, or they left on their own. We always need to have. So you need to, how are you identifying talent like Lisa and saying, hey, you need to be with us at Farmers?
Yeah. So I have a staff member that's 100% of his time is spent on recruiting. And so whether it's through, the easiest way to talk to people are job boards. But we also, a lot of it's networking. Like anything, the best people you get are referrals, people you talk to who you can get to know a little better, because the resume only tells you so much, an interview only tells you so much. So about probably 25% of my time is recruiting, and it's my favorite. I love it. I love working with the agents, but I love talking to people about the opportunity and what it can provide for them. And it's really hard, just like any business anymore. I think the hardest thing that we do, is for Lisa, it's the same struggle. And I tell people, when I interview people, I usually tell them all the reasons you don't want to do this.
Right.
And one of those is staff, like finding good people in your business to help you grow to scale, which is the same thing for me when I'm trying to identify agency owners. So I've learned more. I look at the track record a lot. And so just kind of look to see what they're coming to us with, because I've learned that I'm probably not changing the person. I can polish it up a little bit, but if they don't have a fire, any gasoline I throw on it is not going to do anything.
Right.
So I look for people who maybe have some of that entrepreneurial spirit. Sales experience is helpful, but sales experience plus the ability to lead and manage people. Because once you hire people and you have them in, what we really need from our agency owners is eventually to be business owners, where you have people in seats on the bus who are helping you go the right direction. And if you can't figure that part of that puzzle out, then you're going to inevitably struggle to grow. So that's honestly why we have some programs that allow people who are interested in being agency owners to be a staff or someone like Lisa, learn the business for a year or so, see if it's the right fit. And that's honestly, if I have someone who has the right type of drive, we use some assessments that honestly, at first I was very skeptical, but I kind of use case studies now and look back, and they're pretty good at identifying some of the attributes, not the whole human being, but some of the attributes that they might bring to the table. And I leverage those plus references, we'll make some calls on prior employers and just really try to do as much due diligence on the front end to see if it's someone that might be good. And then I always want them testing the water a little bit before they jump in. So whether as a staff member or someone who's looking to come directly into the business, where they're currently employed, I'll have them get licensed, and we'll start putting them through some of the more difficult things that you have to do, just to see if they have the stomach for it.
Right.
So that if not, no harm, no foul. They tried something, they got into it a little bit. Now they know for them, it's not the right fit. We know it's not the right fit, and they didn't have to uproot their family and go into their investment and drop a lot of money into it.
Right.
So it is a challenge.
Who found who? Did Lisa, did you find Chris, or Chris, did you identify Lisa? How did she become part of your team here in Kansas City?
Talk about.
It's interesting because Chris had a recruiter, his assistant sales manager, who actually reached out to me on LinkedIn. And it was interesting, the timing of it, because a very good friend of mine who's been in the insurance industry for 20 years, she early retired, was very successful in the business, and had talked to me about it and told me, you should look into insurance, because I was at that time, I was getting, I was just burnt out on online advertising sales, because it wasn't a new frontier anymore. People can run their own online advertising. They don't necessarily need to hire a middleman to do it. And I also wasn't happy with the software and the control that I had over managing a campaign with the company that I was with. And so, we would have bad results, and I didn't like that. If we're going to have bad results, I want to have more control over stuff.
Right.
So I just needed a change. And so the timing of it was really good. His name was Sam. He reached out to me and got me licensed. It took me a year to complete the licensing, which normally should only take no more than 60 days. 60 days is like the max. Most people get it done within 2 to 4 weeks.
And why did it take you this amount of time?
Pardon me?
Why did it take you a year?
Well, because I really struggled with making the transition, because they offered me several opportunities. I could come as a staff member and work for somebody. I could come on as a protege, which is somebody who trains, works under an agent for a year and then launches their own agent, or I could just jump right in and be an agency owner. And I really struggled with it, because I know my skill sets, and I didn't want to sell for somebody and not retain that book of business.
Right.
So I decided to jump right in. It took a year though. And I'm happy with that decision. I wouldn't change that for anything, but that's kind of how that happened. So, and I chose Farmers because, so my girlfriend worked for an independent carrier.
Right.
One that we call, we're kind of a hybrid between captive and an exclusive, or an independent and a captive agency. Farmers offers, their own carriers,
right?
Farmers, Bristol West, Foremost, that we own, but we also have the ability to sell to other carriers outside of our market. We have this marketplace that has access to lots of other carriers. I couldn't even name.
So when you mention captive, I was part of a captive insurance company with a previous business. So we took them out. It was, so I don't know whether this is the same. And that's why I was asking, because of this terminology, just clarification for myself. Yeah. But our captive was, we basically created our own insurance company that for like-minded businesses, so that we all had the same type of risk and exposure, so that it'd be to keep us down. And the biggest benefit for us was, like, when we were in the state pool beforehand, our premiums were, $800,000, and then we also had a surcharge on top of that, was god awful expensive. And if we spent under our premiums, we never saw any of that money returned to us. Well, in our captive, we got that. Our expenses, our fixed overhead was a certain percentage, and we kept our claims under that. So that's kind of how I was used to a captive. When you mention captive, captive insurance, what are you speaking about?
It's more from the distribution model. So the agency side of things. So like you either have like your State Farms, Allstates, locally American Family, and country companies. they basically have the opportunity to sell the products of only that carrier. They don't have the choice that a independent agency has, where they have basically that independent agency is a business in itself that gets appointed with all these other carriers, have to maintain those appointments. Where farmers, we basically have a brokerage within ours. So we have appointments with Progressive, Travelers, Safeco, things like that.
Right.
So it's a little bit, he says a hybrid. It's a little bit of both,
Right.
where State Farm has State Farm. You're going to either get State Farm or they're not going to be able to write the business.
Right.
Okay.
And I liked that because I liked working for a brand that was well known and well established. But I also wanted the freedom to do what was right for my customers. So if that meant that the best coverages or rates were with another carrier, then I wanted the ability to be able to at least provide them with the opportunity,
Right.
and say to them, here, look, these are your options. And then also make recommendations based off of my experience with the individual carrier of who I think would be a better fit. Because sometimes it's, surprisingly enough, it's not always about rates. I mean, you do get what you pay for.
Right.
So that was important to me. And that's why I felt comfortable making the switch to farmers versus some of the other carrier or insurance companies out there.
Well, it was interesting. I believe that when we moved, the last time we moved, we did a check. Having a Doberman, there are certain breeds that breed specific that can be excluded, and farmers allowed it. But we still wanted to shop. We wanted to see what was out there. And I remember the weirdest thing, and it was nice that someone from Farmers finally corrected this for me. So we used to live in this, like a 3,800 square foot house in Olathe, and the heart of Olathe, and we knew what we paid for our insurance, homeowners insurance. And then we were moving out to the country to like a 1,500 square foot house, and our homeowners insurance was twice the amount.
Yeah.
And so when we were getting ready to move, when I was calling just to get quotes, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I was like, I don't understand why I'm moving to a house that's less than half the size and I'm paying twice as much. And finally I go, can someone explain this to me? And I actually think it was my first farmer's agent, because I called him and I go, I need an explanation. He goes, oh, it's real easy. When you live in Olathe and your house catches on fire, they'll put it out. When you live in the country and your house catches on fire, it's going to burn to the ground. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, the likelihood of them getting there in time to put it out. And then and I was fine with that. I mean, then I was just like, I thought I was paying apples to apples. So if this is a smaller apple in ways, I should pay less or something. So I didn't and so it was nice to have that, because sometimes everyone just needs a basic level of this is why, and then, oh, it clicks. Now I understand. Oh, that's easy then. Okay, don't move to the country again. And it was funny because I guess there's still a neighbor because you're out in the country, but someone about a mile away from it, house caught on fire, which should have been a very basic kitchen fire from what I understand, it gutted the whole house.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And they do. Where we live, they had, they called it like a regional or territory fire department, which there were different fire stations, but it was one truck. And they would basically drive around. So if your house caught on fire and they were eating at the Wendy's down the street from you, then we had no Wendy's in that town. So the Casey's, if they were getting a slice of pizza at Casey's, they might be able to get to your house in time. So, but that leads me to a question about, how often when people come to you, are they looking for specific coverage like myself, like for our dog? We have something that we need specifically covered. Or do you ever have someone that's trying to, well, we kind of have a dog. Well, it's not really our dog. It's our kid's dog. We just keep it, trying to get around actually having to insure, have that. How often do you come to you for specific or try to get around something specifically?
I've never had anybody that I'm aware of,
Yeah, you haven't caught it yet.
Okay.
dodge that question. So, usually, and maybe it's because this is the only insurance agency I've ever worked for, or
Right.
company that I've ever worked for. For me, it never would occur to me that you would be declined for your pet. So So maybe it's just the way I asked the question. It's
Okay.
very non-threatening, and it's kind of like an after the fact question that I ask when I'm going to close, or get their business written. So
Okay.
It does. We from a higher level, you see it on occasion. You see people who try to avoid it, and your story about the house is actually exactly how I look at what we do. Right, insurance is just risk management, and as part of any smart financial portfolio, one part of that has to be risk management. And so if what I look like at our role in that equation is basically we help to have a conversation with you to help identify what risk might be out there. Some you might not understand. And so if we can help educate you that there is this risk out there, and then we have a discussion and decide what risk you want us to take and what risk you want to assume. That's all it is. And so if you want to assume that risk of the dog situation, then we can put an application where you avoid telling us that, or if the agent's doing the wrong thing, they avoid putting that in there. But then that's not going to be covered.
Right.
And so you're assuming that risk. And I'm a Doberman lover too, Rose. So I've had Dobermans, and when I have seen that as one of the restricted breeds, I'm like, my dog would never do that. However, I also know actuarially, there's a reason why they do it. So there is an inherent risk in that. And so that's really how I look at our role, whether it's life insurance, whatever insurance we're doing, we just want to help educate you a little bit on what might be out there and help make a decision where we're both comfortable on what risk you take and what risk we take. And so that can be through deductibles, that can be through coverages, that can be doing an umbrella, different ththings like that help decide where you want that risk to be.
Right. Yeah. So let me ask you this and you may not know the answer, but I love that you're a Doberman lover, because I say that I'm a dog person. Someone would be like, oh, a dog. And I'll be like, okay, a dog. But a Doberman, I'm like, we should go meet those people. They're probably awesome. So, so when it comes to that, so we had a neighbor that had a pit bull, and nicest dog ever. But I remember when it was a puppy, I was farting around with it, and my fingers got stuck in its mouth. And I mean, it was like, and it wasn't doing anything vicious. It wasn't malicious. There was nothing, but it should have been a friggin' alligator. I mean, because like if my Dobermans are usually missing one tooth. And so you can always hook them and open up their mouth fairly easy. And they don't have so is it more about what the damage to the dog they can do if they do something? Because I know a lot of small dogs have much higher bite rates, but biting your ankle and giving you a cut is different than biting you and killing you. So is it the damage they do, or it is?
Yes.
Okay.
It's both. So, and that's a good question into just insurance. When we look at risk, we look at both severity and frequency.
Okay.
And so if it's both high severity and high frequency, which pit bulls happen to be, and I'm saying that knowing that that's divisive among probably people listening to this. I love pit bulls. I've been around a lot too, who are just little, teddy bears. But if you just look at the data, higher frequency, higher severity is going to be one of the bigger risks for us to want to take. So the insurance company either decides to charge amount of money that will cover that risk, or choose to exclude those types of risk that we don't want to take on.
Right.
And there's many cases where we can't charge enough money for it to make sense. So we end up just declining it and moving on from it. And you're right, Farmers we don't have the breed restriction clause in Kansas and Missouri. When I was in California, we did. So it really depends state specific on probably what actuarial data we have for those areas on whether it's more risky or not.
And I know you can't hear the sounds to the video because it doesn't kick back to you, but there was applause happening in the background about you talking about not that, because that's a very, very big contention. Like I said, I belong to some Doberman groups too, because I'm very much a Doberman lover. And it was weird. I found just recently my very first Doberman would have been 30 years old. And I'm just like, I understand that's older than my daughter because I had her before we had, but I mean, to me, just to think that I've had Dobermans in that breed, and there's a reason they are used for the jobs that they get put to, but they are lovers. I mean, this one, everyone around, she is much more happy, or she is much more content with the little dogs and running around with them and just hanging out. The big dog, she's like, no thanks, I'm good.
Yeah.
So thank you all
Yeah.
very much for doing that. Not just, and it's not just, it's all breeds. So pitties and other breeds are not excluded from farmers unless there's a bite. Because I always explain if there's a bite history, then like you say, you take that into account at that point.
Yeah, we
Right.
do. And
Okay.
I don't believe this is without looking into the contract again, because I
Right.
did look into this contract specific, because it's all it is a contract. So I
Right.
pulled it up and I looked for breed restrictions. And last time I checked, which was about a year ago, there were no breed restrictions at
Okay.
all. We do have animal restrictions. So if you have, a zebra or there's a wild animal on your property, we won't ride it. But other than that, as far as your domesticated animals, there isn't.
Okay, so Lisa, a follow up to what Chris just said. What's the weirdest thing that someone's ever called and asked you to insure, or that are somehow already had it insured and wanted to see if they could move it to farmers? Or have you?
Oh gosh.
Chris, have you had anything just like at like what you own a rocket? How do you own a like how do you own a Soviet era aircraft or just something so weird that you're like, where did you? I have other questions besides us insuring this.
So I haven't necessarily had anything as abnormal as those, but
Right.
I have had people, when you talked about trying to skirt the insurance, I have had people where we inspected our property and they did have, this was in Sylmar, California. They did have a small zoo, like a real zoo in the back of their property, which they obviously didn't tell us about until we went out to take a look at the property, and we could see, in today's day and age, we'd probably Google map it or
Right.
something and be able to see it. And then more of a local flavor was here in Missouri, rural Missouri. They did dirt track racing in their backyard, like a big dirt track racing like pit with some stands they put up. And it was a pretty cool racing track, but obviously something that we weren't interested in taking that risk. So those are probably not as super crazy, but they are maybe kind of blending the other question too. People trying to get some things through that they better.
Have you had a cool thing? Like, I know we're here in Kansas City, and so we've had multiple Super Bowl champions or championships recently. Have you had someone go, "Oh, hey, Lisa, I just sent it a call, Chris. I got my Super Bowl ring. How do we add that onto my? Is that an addendum? You need a picture? How do we do that?" So, have you had anything just amazing like that was really cool that you're like, "Ooh, that's awesome"?
I mean, there are certain risks that where I would have to take it outside of farmers. I had, a multi-million-dollar home I've had to quote out before. But getting back to the weird thing, I did have a guy who he inherited property from and this, I want to say it was out in Missouri, remote Missouri. He had a home actually on land that he had inherited from his father. The home they demolished though. And he had converted a shed into a home. And it was like one of those mini homes, which we weren't able to write. And I mean, it was odd at the time. We are probably going to see more of that. People using like the mini homes and converting, I don't know, what are those big crates or whatever in homes.
Shipping containers.
I don't. Yeah, so right now that's still kind of a special market. And that was probably the strangest thing I had somebody, need insurance for. But yeah, as far as like just odd, I mean, or something that we really couldn't insure. I mean,
I would just wonder if any of the Chiefs were like, I have a ring that needs to be added on.
These players, yeah. Do we have any?
They actually blocked. So we used to have access to search the celebrities and stuff. And when I was in California, I'd see what the Kardashians had insured. And I also, that's when I learned that Keanu Reeves has like 30 motorcycles, that he's a big motorcycle person. But now they kind of block that, so I can't search to see who's in there. Too much information probably for us to be able to talk about.
Yeah, the good old days when over information. And it's funny because as we move to transparency, there's actually less information, because we used to be like that when I was with a company called Circuit City back in the day. You used to be able to look and you'd be like, oh, David Letterman at Christmas time he'd buy 30 TVs. So it's like, oh, he must have bought them all for the staff. Or so. It was just interesting to see. Not David. I don't know if I can, not David Letterman.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that was interesting, and then they did block that, probably for a reason. So I want to circle back to the original reason why we're talking today, and then why you decided to join me for the podcast is life insurance.
Yes.
It especially at my age now, I'm 56. I feel like I'm in very good health. I am in very good health. So I want to say I don't think about my mortality, but I'm always well aware that today could be my last day, and I'm actually okay with that. But I'm probably too okay with that, because one of the problems I keep talking to you about is the life insurance that we're getting for me is not for me. It's for the people I leave behind. And sometimes whether it's I don't want to leave these people behind, so if I don't think about it, it's not going to happen, or whatever how when people reach out to you like the first time, like, I need to talk to you about life insurance, am I typical? Like,
No, most people don't
much quicker.
reach out.
Oh,
Most people don't reach out about life insurance because they are
really?
like you in the fact that they don't think about their own mortality, or they don't think that it's something they have to worry about right now. They can put it off. So most of the people that we talk about, or that I talk to about life insurance, are my current customers, and friends that are my age or younger, because the younger you are, the better off you are getting life insurance.
Right.
And and there are different life insurance vehicles out there, right? There are some that just offer a death benefit, which is a benefit that is left to your loved ones. And then there are some that are used more at, they have cash value to them. So you can use them for, down payments on homes or whatever you want, towards
Right.
retirement, whatever the case may be. So really, it's, the death benefit portion of it is always, I think, is important for everybody to consider. On occasion we'll get somebody that literally has like no friends or family. So they're like,
Right.
I don't care. But most people have somebody in their life that, for me, what I say to them is, and this comes from personal experience, it breaks my heart when I am on my social media and I see a friend of mine who has to put up a GoFundMe to collect money to pay for a death, an unexpected death in their family. And, those are the situations that can be avoided by, having a life insurance policy in place. And so really the importance of it is to not burden, your family members or your friends when they're mourning,
Right.
when they're mourning your loss, which it will be, because most people do die unexpectedly, right?
Yeah.
Most of us aren't planning our death.
Well, so Chris, for you, so Lisa had mentioned that there's an economic advantage of starting this earlier. What are the economic advantages? So we have a 22-year-old who's still in college, finishing up, getting ready to enter her senior year. We have a 28-year-old who works full-time. She's getting her PhD. So she's very successful. And so she's probably, one's in college, one is very successful for age, probably not single, probably not thinking about, who do I have to leave this to? Or, why do I need this? What would be the economic advantages if I or you or Lisa were going to pitch to my children, Trinity, our 22-year-old, or Morgan, Mo, our 28-year-old? How do I pitch them? You should really think about, what's my hook? What's my hook to those two? And it could be different, but what would be my hook to say, think about this?
Yeah. So the thing, I bought my first life insurance policy when I was 23. What got me bought into the life insurance, the idea of it was, number one, I was someone who wanted to take responsibility for my life, right? Like, if I am starting to accumulate some debt, I am starting to do those things, and I wanted to make sure not to shift that burden to anyone else. But the real thing, the cost, like, people don't realize how affordable life insurance can be. And as a 22-year-old, 23-year-old, you're not going to pay much to be able to have that insurance. Plus, with us, you're going to get a discount on your auto insurance, which happens to be the highest it's going to be when you're that age of a driver. So it's going to cost you even less. And for me, it was guaranteed insurability. I'm 42. I'm still in pretty good shape.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on statins now. The things happen to me in life that when I was 23, I was approved at a rating that now I actually ended up converting it. So I'm guaranteed insurability, although it was a term policy, which means it's a rental policy. I had it for 20 years.
Right.
10 years into that policy, I decided, you know what, I want to build some cash value equity and make this a permanent policy so I'll have it the rest of my life. I didn't have to go through any medicals or anything, automatically approved. I rolled that over to a permanent policy, and it was all because of my health at 22.
Okay, so let me ask you this then. So you said 10 years into that 20-year term policy, you made a switch. Was it just economically, you're thinking economically? Was there a change in your life? Oh, now I have a significant other that I need to think about. What instigated that change from your term policy to converting it to a long-term policy?
Yeah, for me, it was the ability to create some tax-free growth. So I can move it to a policy that gives permanent insurance. And then I was financially in a different situation where I didn't care. It was harder for me to pay $15 a month for what I felt like was a term policy, like almost like a tax that I don't plan on ever using because
Right.
It'll expire when I'm this age. And I wanted to be able to I ended up putting $500 into something that accumulated that cash value that's now growing and is an asset for me in the future. And so since my life changed in that situation where I now had the expendable income to put into it, I flipped it over and I still have the same amount of death benefit coverage. Plus basically putting money in the bank that's growing based on the stock market and able to help me make more money in the future. So that was what it was for me. For other folks, I know that sometimes big life changes happen.
Right.
I have people close to me who were diagnosed with cancer. And first thing we did is pulled out their term life policy. We called that insurance company and said, hey, what are the convertibility options? Because they're no longer insurable. So we want to lock in some permanent coverage for her. And those are the things that for that cost of what you're doing, not only are you doing the responsible thing for taking care of, the things that I'm creating in life, but I'm also creating a pathway for the future. I did get married, so I did have that as well. But in this case, it was taking it and adding a little more cash to live off of in the future.
So now I hadn't even written this down or thought about it. I probably thought about it on the backside and then just squashed it. So you're talking about your spouse, and then you're talking about getting insurance. Has there been any? So my wife watches a lot of those shows, like 48 Hours and stuff. And then it's always like, is there an insurance policy on the person and stuff?
Yeah.
Have you all run across something that we may have seen on one of those TV shows where you're just involved, not like involved, but just as the agent, where then this policy and then the police are like, have you ever been involved, either one of you, in something like that?
I haven't, thank goodness. But I will tell you, we watched a lot of those things too. And every time they brought up a life insurance policy, I'm scanning for the company to see what company it was or what agency it was, to see if there were Farmers ones in there. And I have seen Farmers one in there.
Really?
Yeah. But it is, it's always something. It's also why in the application, we ask about how much money you make and stuff, because we want to make sure that it's like, if I'm making 50 grand a year and I want $5 million in coverage, we're going to decline that because you need to justify why you need. It starts to become interesting. And it's also why we have, policies, and this is always a difficult conversation, juvenile policies. So once a child's 15 years old, we can do life insurance on them. And we do this more for cash accumulation and guaranteed insurability because things.
You can 15 days off.
Yeah, 15 days old.
Yeah,
what
you said years, but
15 days.
15.
Old. So,
okay.
Yeah, so when they're a little baby, once they're kind of,
home
home from the hospital, basically, we can put a policy on them, and that's always a difficult conversation to have. But even in those cases, like, we have to make sure insurance matches, that parents have insurance before they're putting on their kids. Kids have the same amount, and it's all about just trying our best ways to remove any of that incentive.
So I'm going to go back, Lisa, and ask you this question real quick. We had talked earlier about, before we started recording, we were talking about sometimes empathy or lack thereof, sometimes you may have. does that benefit you kind of being able to separate, like as a 15-day-old baby, you don't want to talk about their death,
Right.
but they could fucking die. I mean, my thing is you always have to look at best and worst case scenario. If I do this, if I surf this wave, what's the worst thing that could happen to me? And it's gonna, the bigger the wave, the more exposure I'm going to have to risk and death and thing. So like, but if you can disregard, I mean, not disregard that, but are you able to have those more difficult conversations about, you have a 15-year-old day-old baby, but you still need to consider it. How does that go? I mean, how do you process that?
I don't focus on the death benefit portion of it. I focus on the cash value portion of it. I focus on the fact that if you start this life policy at this stage of their life, it's going to be more affordable than any policy you can get out there. They can accumulate a cash value so that by the time they turn 18, they're ready to go to college. You have money that you can put towards their college, or you can put towards their first home, or, their graduation or wedding or whatever. I look at more of the positive reasons why you want to do this. It's a way of generating that or growing like a generational wealth and starting it now. Maybe something your parents didn't do for you, but something you can do for your children.
What's the longest term a 15-day-old baby can get? I mean, like,
well, they can't get a term policy. They get
permanent.
they only get permanent policies. So it's a policy that they will own for the rest of their life.
Oh.
So let's say they end up getting, or acquiring, I don't know if diabetes you're born with it, or if you,
Depends on.
I think it depends on the types.
Right, exactly. So, things like that can happen where, because you have this policy in place, they're good. You're not gonna have to worry about them. They're already insured.
So the parents are almost double insuring that child, not only giving them an actual tangible policy, but also giving them the benefits in the future. I would just want so you don't, like, when you turn 18, if you've had that policy before, there's nothing that says, oh, we need to check you out now you're an adult, or so that it just when you lie, you have it. You do. So that rate, does it change as they age? Or does that?
The rate does not. It's locked in because because it's a permanent policy.
Okay.
So, that's the other reason. And then they can grow it. I mean, they can continue. They can increase it. They aren't locked into only spending that much. They want to grow it exponentially as they, generate more income. Then they continue to put more money in it. And some parents, here's the other reason why I would recommend it is, and I know parents out there that do it, and there's nothing wrong with doing that, is when you purchase a policy like that on your child, you own the policy until they become an adult. And at that time, you can turn it over to them, or you can continue to own the policy.
Right.
So as let's say, 30, 40, however old you are, if you have a child that's less than 18 years old, it is a policy that you can purchase as another kind of alternative retirement policy for yourself, or just another cash policy that you can use or access at some time if you do not turn it over to your child to give it to them.
Okay.
But you're going to get it a lot cheaper on your child than you will necessarily on yourself at that time. You should have it too. Like Chris said, I mean, our underwriters are going to look at the fact that you're purchasing a policy for your child, not necessarily for yourself. But
so what percentage of people, I mean, like that, so I'm still caught up on the old 15-day-old, because I've never heard, I mean, I just, as an individual, you're not going to think about it until your mind can conceive. And as a teenager, you're probably, at least at my age, I was jumping my bike over stuff. So, I mean, I wasn't thinking about any of that. So how do you all, because as I'm looking late in life, and as important it is to me now to cover my wife and family when something, because I know something will happen to me, when something happens to me, it's just as important just as important, if not more beneficial, the younger they start it. So how do you find parent? No one ever did. I mean, And I'm trying to think that when we started with,
because they don't understand it. Most people, like, I'm embarrassed to say I didn't understand life insurance until I got into this industry. Like, I hate the fact that I didn't have something in place, that my parents didn't have something in place on me or for me. You know, and I do now. And so I'm playing catch up.
do people ever use that as an
example?
example though? Oh, well, Lisa, you didn't have insurance until you were X age. So I don't, I probably don't. Do they use that as a comeback or
Oh, no, not at all.
Okay.
Because my reasoning for it is for my retirement. I'm using it towards my retirement. This is the whole reason why I got it. Well, the death benefit obviously is for my loved ones, right?
Right.
But I got a permanent policy to grow that cash value to use towards my retirement, because my IRA in the last, I mean, it's not growing really. It's not. I open it up every day, and maybe it's gained a little, and then the next day it's lost some. So it's like I'm at a time of my life where my retirement and my retirement savings and where they are is very important to me. And are they growing? Am I losing money? And not to mention, when I go to withdraw that money, what is my tax rate going to be at that time? Because it's only going to increase, right? So, you know, those are the things that I'm looking at now that I wish somebody had sat down with me when I was younger to explain to me, so that I can, so that I wouldn't be in this position today. So I make it my responsibility. I talk to my friends, I talk to my policy holders, because if something happens to them, you know, of course I'm going to feel badly, but I don't want to feel guilty that I never approached them with this.
Yeah.
Right.
And
So,
can I ask, so when you ask that question about, like, especially with a child, you just have a baby, you know, bring them home from the hospital. At some point, did you ever think about education expenses or something, other ways that you might want to help, you know, have some, you know, put some things in place for your child as they get older?
that's why my wife is so wonderful. I know that she thought about many, if not all of those things, but that is just not, I don't use my CPU power to think about the possibility. I always think, I told Lisa what really, we've been talking for, God, I want to say a month, but it's probably been a lot longer than that. But that being said, so what happened was 2 weeks ago, I'm standing outside with our dog, and there's an electrical storm going on. And I'm out on our deck, and our dog's just laying there. She doesn't give two shits about anything. She's quite the TikTok star, because her interactions with squirrels have become quite legendary on there. But she doesn't react. She's laying there, doesn't care. And this lightning's hitting really close by. And I literally said out loud to the dog, I go, I need to grab my camera to show everyone how calm you are in the storm. And as I turned, I see a tree that's about 50 yards from me. And it's literally slow motion as I see the lightning peel right down the middle of the tree, and the tree explodes. And there's shrapnel everywhere. I mean, big pieces that even if they just hit me would have taken me out. Somehow, none of them touched me. They went all around me. And then a few days later, I'm standing out there. I never have headphones on because we live on a golf course, and I'm worried about golfers, errant shots. But they weren't golfing that day. They were mowing, and so I had headphones on. I'm just out there kind of jamming, and I thought I saw something and heard something. I kind of looked to my side. I'm like, no. And then I look again, and my neighbor's looking out, and the lawnmower from the golf course, which was a good 200 yards away, shot a golf ball across.
Oh, wow.
And hit like 10 to 15 feet to the left of me. And because I was standing on the porch, it was at the same eye level. Because my dog, Trinity, was like, I go, that would have hit me in the head. And she goes, well, if you're over there, it would have gone over your head. I go, oh, but if it was here, it's same eye level. So I kept saying to Lisa that God's getting closer and closer with his warnings. And Bobby was like, she was literally like, will you just call them, please? And I'm like, yes, I will do it. So, so that was my instigation. But I hate to hear that that it's not usually like this. But you say people just
No, it is usually like that.
Oh, it is. Oh, okay.
People, you know, people in the beginning, the reason why they aren't interested is because they don't know anything about it. They don't understand life insurance. They think, oh, I've got a policy at work. They don't understand that the policy they have with work, they will only have as long as they're working for that company. And if they're lucky, they'll have it until the day they retire. But then they'll be very unlucky because they'll be in their 60s, maybe possibly late 50s, where it's going to be more expensive if they can get approved at all, because we're assuming that they're not going to have any health issues that
Right.
will cause them to either get rated higher or decline. So another reason to start doing it when you're, the earlier you are. And I mean, with that said, most people don't stay at the same company anymore for
Right.
decades, right? So the policy that you have at work is not enough.
Yeah. And even when I'm in a small business now, and they probably don't even, because I'm not full-time anymore. So that I probably literally, I didn't even think about that. I probably do not have any type of death benefit probably from them anymore. When I was with a big corporation, I always had the opportunity to do like up to 8 times my salary without have a medical exam, and I could do like 15 times my salary with a medical exam. So that was more robust. But yeah, as I get older, and it's just, man, it's hard. Oh, here was a question. This is going to sound weird. Once I'm dead, does insurance do they care what happens to my body?
I think the only cases where, and this is me from my experience, I'm no expert in this part of it, but my only experience would be is if there is some question over
How I died.
We had talked about,
Okay.
talked about some of those, making sure that there's nothing. Other than that, typically what you end up having is once we have the death certificate, we issue that check and you get paid out, and then we're as far as the insurance company itself is
the reason I ask this is, and we've talked about 401ks too, because I will, saving for the future, you have your 401ks. Insurance is a very good thing. I went a different route. My 401ks they tanked in around 2012, and some other things. So for my family, and this life insurance, I think, is going to be much better for them. And I have talked to a lawyer on the podcast. I have talked to a judge on the podcast about this, that when I die, I'm going to have the bones taken out of my body and I'm going to be restuffed.
Sweet.
And then I'm going to be put in a catapult, and people are going to pay to try to shoot my body into the grave. And so what you're going to do is you're going to pay like $100 up front to try to pull the lever and shoot me into the grave. And so if the first person, say there's 1,000 tickets sold, if the first person gets me in the grave, then it's all over. So you're basically paying, but that's going to be for my family, that's going to be how they make money, is by somehow getting me.
Well, the state might have a problem with that, but we won't.
So that's why I actually talked to an attorney first. It's the right of sepulcher. I talked to a judge. I had a judge on to find out whether we could do this. The next thing I need to involve is a mortician to see if the bones can be taken out. Because here's the thing. Most people, when I say this, why don't you get cremated? They put you in a ball. And I'm like, well, that's a little easy. I mean, that's why a baseball is shaped like a baseball and not like a human. Try catapult. And I'm not talking like the catapult's throwing me like 30 feet. I'm talking like all the way across the graveyard, like 100 yards. So there's going to be wind that you're going to have. There's going to be a lot of stuff that goes in. So I just need to make sure that my life insurance, because that would be like a double payout for them. Because they would get life insurance policy and the benefit, the all the pageantry that will go with catapulting me into a grave.
Yeah, I love it. I think I could sell this. Let's start something and let's do this.
So here's my whole thing. And I have been talking about this and I've been referencing this and I'm being serious about doing this. But if I find a graveyard that will actually do this, why wouldn't they just sell the idea to? So I have to try to insulate myself, because they could just sell the idea before I die and then I'm screwed. I mean, yeah. So
there's no novelty in it anymore.
No. I mean, and it would bring back, what I'm really hoping it brings back the catapult industry, because that is an industry that I have not heard anything post-COVID about.
I haven't either.
Yeah, I know. So I really
It was
didn't
booming
hear.
before COVID.
I didn't hear about it pre-COVID either, but post-COVID, definitely. I have not heard of that at all. So, okay. So if I, as a non-licensed real estate agent, as a non-licensed agent, how do I pitch to someone now that I've made the commitment to you all that, hey, we're on this track. We're going to get life insurance for ourselves. How do I tell someone else, you guys should really think about this? You guys need to reach out to Lisa because she can help you with this, or reach out to even your current agent if you have someone that you're happy with. But this, how do I make someone else feel the urgency that whatever the universe said, I need to be urgent about this at this time? How do I make others feel that urgency?
Well, I mean, for me, this is what I always say about life insurance is that generally life insurance is something that people don't want till they need it. And when they need it, it's too late. Right. So, and what people don't understand is that the cheapest time to get it is today. Every birthday, it's going to get more expensive. And generally, we don't get healthier as we get older. That's even one of the things people will say, oh, I'm going to quit smoking. Well, that's great. Let's put something in place today because, I've been trying to quit habits for a number of years.
Right.
And it doesn't happen that easily. So I think it's more about having them be open to the idea that, it may not be what you think. There may be some options out there. And quite honestly, we have different options that fit into anyone's budget. So one way I look at this too is, every day when I really think about my actions and what I'm doing, this might sound depressing, but I kind of live for my eulogy. Like, do I want at my eulogy, what do I want people to say about me? And I don't think that there's anything that really gives that feeling of what I want to give to my loved ones other than making a choice to put something aside for them so that when I'm no longer here, they're taken care of. That's a real show of affection and love. And it's a way that I think when I think about it, like that's really selfless, right? Like I don't get to experience it. And I'd rather, at my eulogy, I'd rather them talk about me being a selfless, a good husband, a loving, caring husband and father, or whatever it may be. I'm not a father, but uncle. And life insurance is really maybe the best way I can think of being able to do that for your loved ones.
So this is how different you and I are, Chris. As you're thinking about, I want them to think about how the eulogy. I'm thinking, I wonder, is there an insurance company that just offers like a $1 policy? So like when the family is reading the will, it's basically a fuck you. They think there's gonna, oh yes, there's a life insurance policy, and everyone's like, how much am I gonna get? And it's like, there's $1. It's gonna be equally divided among the four of you. It's going to be paid out over the next 25 years, no interest, so you will get 1 penny a year as a fuck you to all of you all. So
one thing we can do is we can give 99% of your death benefit to the Doberman Foundation, and then 1% to your other beneficiary, and then we can do it that way.
No, so what would really, so if I tied that into, if I really wanted to give an FU to my wife, it would be that she had to have Dobermans in perpetuity. Because they are clingy dogs. I mean, they are. And sometimes I had Dobermans before I met my wife, so she kind of came into it and couldn't get me to shake the Dobermans. But that's one thing. So even at this age, at 56, our current Doberman's nearing the end. She's only 8, but she has some medical conditions, and I love her to death. She's listening to me talk about her right now, but this could be your last summer, and I'm okay with that. But my wife doesn't want to get another dog because she goes, how about if you don't make it the next 8 to 10 years? I'm stuck with that. So, yeah, so I would be 99. I would give her 100% as long as she had to spend it on Dobermans and Doberman adjacent products. That would be great. So, okay, so I'm going to ask each one of you. I'm going to start with you, Chris, and then go to you, Lisa. I'm going to ask, what is your most favorite, not most beneficial or anything else, most favorite part of your job, and then and why that is? And it has, I guess, I know I'm stacking questions. what it is, why that is, and has it changed over time? Because I know, Lisa, you're new, so it could have changed. I mean, newer, so it could have changed from the time that you started from a different career to now. So, Chris, what's your favorite part of what you do?
It's actually working with people like Lisa. Like that's primarily what I do. I recruit, train, bring people into this business, and I love seeing business owners get into insurance, fall in love with insurance. You know, it's something I think about when I was, you know, a little kid growing up. I never dreamed of being in insurance. You know, even when I got out of college, I thought, I'm not going to insurance. It's so boring. And I love being able to introduce new people to this field and help them see how, you know, exciting it is exciting.
Yeah, it is.
And
It's always changing.
It is always changing, and really what it can do for their lives and see them succeed. And Elisa's in that growth stage, and just giving that opportunity for that person to change their life and their livelihood by getting into this business. And it's since I've got into this role, it's really been the same. I've just had to I've learned a lot of lessons along the way as to how I can do that better and how I can be better at supporting them through this.
That's awesome. And Lisa, how about you? Coming from online marketing to insurance, has I mean, not the passion, but has what you felt as being fulfilling, has it stayed the same, or has that changed over time for you?
Well, I mean, it's changed from that, from doing that. For me, what I love about what I do now is I own a business that, I mean, I control the outcome of my business. But I'm selling something because I enjoy sales. I really do. I'm selling something that people actually need, if not have to have. So it's a product that people have to have, or they really need to have. And I get to build relationships. You know, I'm not working in a call center where I speak to somebody new every day and then I pass it off to somebody else. You know, I'm working with people in my own community, helping them with a product or products that, you know, really help them, whether they feel that way sometimes or not. At the time of the loss, I'm the person that they reach out to, and I like being that person that can help them. You know, I have people call me all the time that especially, you know, with the storms lately,
Right.
and they don't know what to do, and I'm glad they called because I can take care of it from there. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, and I get that with you, that you do show the empathy in that, and that that's where I would fall along the wayside. I mean, just I'd be like, yeah, you had a roof. Sorry, that's what happens when you live in the Midwest. I mean, yeah. So, but you need people like that. You need people that have a passion to help others when they don't know that they need to be helped, maybe, or not even aware. You know, and
Right.
and,
They
and
understand the help.
yeah, because I would say that most people, I don't know that for a fact. I would say that there are going to be people like me that may not really think about life insurance until peripherally they have to. Like last year, I lost 3 guys within, one was, I think, 3 years younger than me, and the other one was like the oldest was 7 years older than me. So within about a 10-year time frame around me, all got cancer and died within like 6 months from the time they diagnosed to the time, which isn't much. You don't have time to really to do anything at that point. And so I started thinking about that. I'm 7 years older than Bobby. So we're not always like on that same wavelength. Like, you know, if I start to become a trip and fall hazard, well, that's still at least 7 years off in the future for her. So we don't always even think about these things. She's probably thinking less about her mortality than I am. Of course, God keeps showing me that my mortality by trying to strike me with lightning and stuff. But so it's nice that we have you all here, and people like you. I hope that there are people that are listening to this, and we do have a very robust audience. I know that we have a very robust international audience as well, and I don't know how that works internationally with insurance and things, but you know, I hope they do start thinking about it, because the more I think about it, the more I wish I would have done it earlier. And I mean, I'm not dead, so it's not like, I mean, I'm still fine if we get locked in, but I should have done it. You know, the old saying is the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is today. And so that's kind of where it was. So I am going to do what I can to try to get my children to think about it. Because I know, especially Trinity, they're in school. They're thinking about spring break, when are their summer classes over, when's fall semester. Their life insurance has no bearing on them, and it should be. I mean,
are they thinking about buying a home? Would they like to own a home someday?
I don't. I have so I've just become a little anti. They've heard me become so. To me, homes are a great investment. So they will always build value over time, but they become an anchor. You can't just you can't just say, "Oh, I got a job offer in San Diego, but they need me to start in 10 days." You know, I can get out of a lease at an apartment, even though I have to pay a couple, you know, whatever. So maybe that will change for them. We'll see. I mean, I miss having a home. I don't like having neighbors I share walls with. So that, but I know that they heard me saying, you know, there were times where I had an offer in Tampa, and I actually had moved back there for like 7 months, and I'd fly home on the weekends. And I really, the home that it's so no. So that is a long answer to your question, but so that is, but no, I mean, and you have to think about that. My big one right now, and I want to talk to you all maybe sometime about, is car insurance, because I have an attorney that wants to be on to talk about the lack of car insurance in Missouri, the lack of people that have that. And because a lot of people are just like, well, I hope I don't get hit by them. And it's like, I don't think that's not where it stops. Just hoping, God, I hope I don't get hit by someone that's uninsured. It changes so you all have been amazing. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Chris, it was so nice to meet you. Lisa, we've talked on many occasions. So once again, I'm going to pass it off to Bobby for you to get the finishing touches for what we need. But I'm glad that we're getting this done finally. And I'm going to be kind of like an evangelist for you all, because I will tell people, you know, you should start thinking about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, just the difference between my age and Bobby years, the 7 years apart. I mean, even if I was looking male to male, it's still pretty amazing what the cost difference is you can save. Yeah. And the earlier that you start, I'm sure it's exponentially cheaper. So
it is.
Yeah.
Not to mention the multi-policy discount, discount, if you're, 50, maybe not 50%, but a percentage of the people that I sell life insurance to, the biggest reason is because it's cheaper for them to get car insurance with the life insurance than it is for them to just get the car insurance. So they get both.
So do they know that when they're coming to you, or is that something?
Yeah, I make sure everybody I talk to.
But are you pitching that to them, or are they aware of that? Are they aware? Are they coming to you?
Them up front.
Okay.
If they're interested, I put the quotes together and then show them their option.
So,
I say, look, you can get these two for less, or you could just get this.
So in that instance, are they coming to you for car insurance, and you're like, oh, we can get you an additional savings by this? Okay.
And a policy. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, okay. That's awesome though, because, so often now people don't offer, they do the very bare minimum. I saw a thing once a while ago where someone was like, okay, everyone raise your hand. So they raise your hand, and then he goes, now raise it higher. And everyone raised their hand higher. He goes, why didn't you do that the first time? And I mean, but it does kind of make a point. People are just, okay, there I go. You wanted it raised. I raised my hand. And so it's nice that, if you're looking out for the people, that it's not like you're just trying to add another policy like, oh, I make more money on this, but this is beneficial. It benefits you because we've now reduced your car insurance rate, which is your highest point you're going to be at. And then we're also giving you the peace of mind for your loved ones or your family, or economic incentive to do this in the future. So that's amazing as well. So that's awesome. I've learned a lot today. And I actually had notes about this. We've been talking about this, and I've still learned a lot. So I think that the listeners have probably done that as well. So thank you all both very much for being on.
Thank you, Rob. Please make sure to put me on your contact list for the catapult. I'm interested.
Okay, yeah. So here's my latest thing. I want to make a documentary because I just want to catch people's. So way back in the day, I knew a mortician. So I want to go back to her. Well, she knew me as a normal, I was just a guy, a young guy. And now I want to pitch the idea of, can your mortuary services debone me? And I want to catch the reaction on video and see how that is. So
I love it.
Yeah, I think it'll be fun. And I mean, the pay-per-view that you could tie into this, I mean, there's so many, oh my gosh, this could. I mean, this is, Chris, you're not going to get this reference. Lisa, you're not going to get this reference. This is going to be like Evel Knievel jumping Snake Canyon. It could go horribly wrong, and people are still going to be talking about it 60 years later, 50 years later. So, okay. Thank you all so much. I hope that either together you all were great. This is the first time I've had two people at one location on. So, actually, it's not. It's the second time. But thank you all for doing it. You all did a great job. It was great to talk to you all both. And I hope either together or individually you'll be on, because I think there's a lot more that the listeners would like to hear about. And there's going to be a lot more questions that I'm going to have, that not just about what we talked about, but I'm sure there's peripheral stuff that we didn't even touch on. So it's been a lot of fun. Thank you all very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Rob.
Okay. So for all the listeners, thank you all so much for listening to the Stone Genius podcast. Today we had Lisa Hoskins. She is a farmer's insurance agent extraordinaire in the Kansas City metro area. Also, we had Kansas City Metro District Manager Chris Peoples on the program. Thank you all again so much for being on the program.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Rob.
You have
You're
a great
welcome.
day.
You too. Everyone else, well, I'll talk to you all later. You're going to listen to Roe.